I asked what day the wedding was. I said, "We got married yesterday," she answered. "Just for special people." The line went quiet. My heart did not. It jumped like a metal bird in a tin cage. I stood in my kitchen, hand on the counter, as if the Formica could keep me from falling. I had bought that counter in cash after 30 years of driving city buses. I had wanted a table big enough for a family. Now I was alone, staring at a phone that had turned into a knife. Her name was Sloane Whitaker, and she had married my son, Calder, my only child, my whole world since he took his first breath in a 2-bedroom on Salem Avenue. I am Rufus Hale, 64 years old, retired driver out of Dayton, Ohio. My wife, Marnie, passed when Calder was 11. I learned how to cook, iron shirts, and braid a boy's hair for football mornings. I taught him to steer a mower in straight lines, to look people in the eye, to say, "Thank you," even when it hurt. I saved for him. I saved like a mule. I saved like the future depended on it. Because for me, it did. When Sloane said yesterday, my throat burned. I had hidden the box with the cufflinks. Silver, oval, with a tiny H card on each. A silly thing. A father thing. He would not wear them now. He would not ask me to stand at his side. "Just for special people," she had said, like I was a stranger from the bus route who had asked for a free ride. I told myself to breathe. I tried to remember the last time I had seen Calder's eyes soft and sure, the way they were when he was 9 and lost his tooth on a roller coaster. Somewhere along the line those eyes had hardened. Somewhere I had lost a map. I hung up and walked to my small house. The carpet gave under my feet. The clock on the wall blinked 11:08 a.m. like it was scolding me for not being at work. I touched the framed photo by the doorway. Calder at 17, holding up a letter from the technical college. He had fixed the neighbor's lawn mower twice by then. He wanted to make engines hum, and stop, and hum again. We ate grilled cheese and laughed so hard that night that Marnie's old wind chime sang, and there was no wind. I was not angry that morning, just empty. I made a pot of coffee and let it go cold. People think pain is loud. Sometimes it is the quiet that breaks you. A week later, my phone rang again. I was in the garden, pulling weeds around the tomatoes. The sun was kind and bright. The voice was not. "The rent is overdue," Sloane said. "Did you transfer it?" Her tone was smooth, like a new car dashboard. I could hear traffic wherever she was, city sounds, horns and feet. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stood up. My back ached the way it does every morning. "Calder's at work," she went on. "He can't talk, but he said you'd handle it. Like always." Like always. Those words slid into me like ice. I took a breath and felt the threads of my life pull tight. "Rent," I said, slow. "For which place?" I knew, of course. The apartment on Linden Street. The one I had co-signed after she said her credit had a hiccup. The one with the gray balcony and the broken elevator. The one I had helped paint. Sloane made a little sound, a laugh with no laughter in it. "You know which one, Rufus," she said. "We're late. The fee is going to pile up. You don't want that." There was a car horn, and her voice went away for a second, then back. "Did you transfer it?" I looked at my hands. Old man hands. Marks like road maps. I heard the pigeons flap off the roof. I said very soft, "Didn't I tell you?" The word surprised me. I knew what I meant, but she did not, or she pretended not to. "Tell me what?" she asked. "Rufus, I'm serious. The landlord's blowing up my phone." I walked inside, past a calendar with doctor notes, past a shoe rack with the boots I wore in winter storms to drive a bus full of strangers home. In the hallway was a box. I had set it there last week, after her first call. It held folders. Folders held papers. Papers held years. I opened it and ran my thumb along the tabs. "Didn't I tell you," I said again, "that I don't make transfers without seeing my son's face?" Silence. Then a sigh, low and sharp. "He's busy," she said. "Like that explained a country's history. Just send it, $1,450. And the late fee." My heart slowed. My breath steadied. Something inside me clicked into place, like a safe door. It was strange, that calm. It felt like the morning you decide to shovel the whole driveway before the snow gets heavy. You look at the white, and you think, this will take time, but it will get done. I pulled out a manila folder. On the front, I had written house in black marker. Maybe that was foolish. Maybe it was old-fashioned. I am old-fashioned. I like paper you can touch. Inside were deeds, tax letters, the receipt for a new water heater, and a thin envelope I had sealed a month earlier. The envelope was the color of dust. On it I had written Calder in a hand I barely recognized as my own. I placed it on the kitchen table, next to the coffee maker. I could hear Sloan still breathing on the line. I could hear a bus signed to a stop in the distance, the sound that used to be my whole day. "Rufus," she said, "are you there?" I looked out the window at the strip of sky I owned. The tomatoes would be red soon. "I'm here," I said. "Tell Calder to come by tonight." She laughed again, a short spark. "We have plans." I nodded, though she could not see. "Tell him it's about his mother," I said. That silenced her. Sloan did not know Marnie. She only knew stories. She knew the ring that sits in a drawer and the way Calder's voice softens when he says her name. "Fine," she said after a pause. "We'll see." She hung up without goodbye. I looked at the thin envelope and thought about a promise I had made at a hospital bed 23 years ago. A simple promise. That our boy would be raised with love and, when needed, with truth. I sat down and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter I had written in slow lines, and a copy of the thing most people do not think about until it is too late. I read the letter again, even though I knew every word. I read it in the quiet, with the clock tapping at the wall and the sun sliding along the floor. I thought of Calder's first broken bicycle chain, of his face when I told him he could fix it himself. I thought of the way Sloan looked at me the first time we met, like I was a chair taking up space. I thought of that phrase, just for special people, and how she had thrown it like a stone. I felt the weight of it, heavy and round. Then I stood, put the letter back, and slid the envelope under the silver cufflinks in the kitchen drawer. That night the house felt smaller. The wind moved through the maple out front, and its leaves brushed the eaves like fingers asking to be let in. I made stew, the kind with carrots that melt when you press them. I set 3 bowls on the counter, then put one away. Old habit, old hope. At 7 there was a knock, not a soft knock, an impatient knock, quick and hard, like someone tapping a watch. I wiped my hands and went to the door. Through the peephole I saw Calder's shoulders, the same shape as mine, and the edge of Sloane's white coat. I took a breath and reached for the handle. The hallway light made a bright band on the floor. I turned the deadbolt, opened the door wide, and watched the expression on my son's face change when he saw what I was holding in my hand. It was not a checkbook. It was not the remote. It was not an apology. It was the one thing he never expected me to bring to the door on a weeknight with stew still bubbling on the stove. And when he realized what it meant, he stepped back as if the floor had moved. Sloane's smile froze, then fell. The maple outside brushed the eaves again. The clock on the wall kept tapping like a metronome in a quiet room. I lifted my chin. "Come in," I said, my voice steady and low. "We need to talk about yesterday and about what happens next." The next second decided everything. Calder stepped into the house first. He looked taller than I remembered, but thinner too, like the world had been carving him down a little at a time. His shoulders were still broad, but his eyes darted around the room like a boy afraid of breaking something. Behind him, Sloan entered with that sharp perfume that smelled like money in winter. She didn't look around at the photos on the wall. She didn't need to. She had already decided what kind of man I was before stepping through the door. "Dad," Calder said quietly. The words sounded rusty, as if it had been sitting and used on a shelf for too long. "We didn't mean to hurt you. The wedding, it was small, rushed. Just paperwork, really." I smiled, though I felt nothing of it. "Paperwork?" I repeated. "That's what you call a wedding now?" Sloan sighed, folding her arms. "It wasn't personal, Rufus. We just wanted something simple. No drama." "No drama?" I said, "You married my son and didn't tell his father. You called me a week later asking for rent money. That's not drama?" Calder's face tightened. He rubbed his neck like he always did when guilt came creeping. I had seen that look when he was 16 and then at the truck. But this was different. This was shame with layers. Dad, you don't understand, he said. We're building something. Sloan got this opportunity in Cincinnati. Rent went up. I'm trying to save. We'll pay you back. Stop. My voice came out calm, but it cut through the room like wire. I turned toward the kitchen drawer and pulled it open. The silver cufflinks caught the light. I placed them on the table, then the envelope beside them. Before you start talking about paying me back, I said, let's look at what's already owed. Sloane's eyes flicked to the envelope. Curious, cautious. What's that? Something from yesterday. I said, and from 20 years ago. Calder frowned. Dad, what are you doing? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I opened the envelope and took out the letter. The paper was soft at the edges from being read too many times. My handwriting looked shaky, older than I remembered. I wrote this after your mom passed. I said, she made me promise to do 2 things. 1, keep you out of trouble. 2, never let money be the only language between us. Sloane shifted. We're not here about language, Rufus. We're here about rent. Can we not make this emotional? I looked at her. You took that from me already. She blinked, surprised at the steel in my voice. Calder looked between us, trapped in the middle of the storm he'd helped create, but didn't know how to stop. Dad, please. This isn't worth fighting over. It's just a delay. No, son, I said softly. It's not about the delay. It's about who you become while I was busy believing you were still that boy fixing engines in the yard. The silence stretched. The old clock clicked, measuring every second of the distance between us. I remember when Calder would sit on that same table and draw plans for his own workshop, telling me he'd name it Hale Motors. I had saved every spare dollar to help him start it. That dream had vanished the day he met Sloane. I turned to her. You said something to me on the phone that stuck. I said, just for special people. Tell me, Sloane, what makes a person special to you? She gave a small smirk. People who mind their own business. I laughed quietly. Then you should have married someone else. Her face hardened, but I saw something behind it. Fear, maybe, or annoyance that I wasn't breaking like she expected. Calder stepped forward. Dad, please, just help us this one last time. I'll pay you back, I swear. Do you remember when you were 12? I said, and we had that stray dog show up in the yard? He blinked. Yeah, you told me not to feed it. I told you that because if you feed a stray, it learns to take without asking. But I fed it anyway. And you know what happened? Calder hesitated. It stayed. I nodded slowly. That's right. It stayed. Until the day I couldn't afford to keep it anymore. Sloane rolled her eyes. This is ridiculous. We're not dogs. No, I said. You're people. People who forgot what family means. She opened her mouth to reply, but I lifted a hand. Enough. I'm not paying your rent. Not this month. Not ever again. You're adults now. If you want a marriage built on secrets and borrowed money, then you'll have to fund it yourselves. Calder's jaw tightened. So that's it? After everything? Everything. I said, my voice rising for the first time. After every shift I worked. Every night I came home smelling like diesel, just to see you through school. Yes, Calder. That's everything. That's what fathers do. But what sons do is remember. You didn't. He looked at the floor. The guilt finally cracked his voice. I didn't mean to. I know, I said softly. But meaning well doesn't fix what's broken. The air in the kitchen turned heavy. Sloane grabbed her coat. Let's go, she snapped. This was a waste of time. Calder hesitated, glancing at me one last time. His eyes shimmered like they did the day his mother died. Then he turned away and followed her out. The door slammed, and the sound rattled the window pane. I stood alone in the quiet. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the ache of love twisted into disappointment. I looked down at the cufflinks. Their shine had dulled. I sat and whispered to the empty room. You can't save someone who doesn't want saving. But deep down, another voice whispered back, "You can still teach them what it costs to forget." That night, I took the envelope again. This time, I slipped in another paper, one that would change everything. I folded it carefully, sealed it, and locked in the desk drawer next to my pension documents. Because if Calder and Sloan wanted to treat me like a wallet, then they would learn just how empty a man's pockets could be and how full his plans could get when he finally stops giving. As I turned off the light, a slow, steady calm filled the house. Not peace exactly, something sharper, something like purpose. Tomorrow, I told myself, was the first day of my retirement from being taken for granted. And tomorrow, they'd start to find out what that really meant. The next morning, I woke before the sun. Old habit. My body didn't know I'd stopped working. Years of 4 a.m. alarms leave something behind. Even after the job is gone, I made coffee, black, strong enough to wake the dead, and sat by the window, watching the light crawl over the street. My neighborhood in Dayton wasn't much to look at, just cracked sidewalks and faded mailboxes, but it was mine. I had paid every bill on time, never owed a soul, and yet somehow I had raised a son who thought debt was love. I took out the old photo album. The corners were frayed from being opened too many times. On the first page was Calder, age 7, holding a toy wrench in one hand and a broken toaster in the other. He'd written, "Fixing stuff with Dad." That was us, always fixing things, appliances, engines, feelings. We used to say we could fix anything. I guess neither of us knew that people were harder to repair than machines. After Marnie died, I worked double shifts to keep us afloat. I'd get home after midnight, find him asleep on the couch with a blanket half on, the TV humming soft. I'd carry him to bed, whisper, "I've got you, son." Those words had been my promise for 2 decades. I believed keeping him safe meant saying yes to everything. Yes to new shoes. Yes to college loans. Yes to covering bills when times were hard. But somewhere, yes had turned into a chain. I closed the album and looked at the desk drawer. Inside was that envelope, the one with the paper I'd added last night. My pension documents. I had rewritten my beneficiary. Not to Calder. Not anymore. The money I'd saved for his future, the house he'd one day inherit, it was now directed somewhere else. Somewhere he wouldn't expect. Because before I started working on engines, I'd worked with people. At the bus depot, there was a woman named Darlene. She was the kind of person who kept the world running quietly, organized, patient, and never afraid to speak truth. She'd retired 5 years before me and started volunteering at a community home for veterans. Last month, she'd told me they were struggling to keep the doors open. "These men fought for this country, Rufus," she'd said. "Now they're fighting mold and empty cupboards." I had nodded, made a mental note, and done nothing. Until now. Now I had a reason. My phone buzzed. A message from Calder. "Dad, sorry about last night. Sloan was upset. We'll figure things out. Love you." It should have comforted me. Instead, it hurt worse. "Love you" used to mean something. Now it felt like a receipt after a purchase. I didn't reply. Around noon, I went into town. The bank teller, a young man with hair too perfect for his job, greeted me by name. "Morning, Mr. Hale. What can I help you with today?" "I'd like to make a transfer," I said. He smiled, ready to type. "To the same account as usual?" I looked him in the eye. "No, not this time." I gave him the details for the veteran's home. As he processed the form, I thought of Marnie again. She had always believed in quiet giving. No speeches, no attention, just kindness done and forgotten. When the teller handed me the confirmation slip, I folded it into my wallet next to her photo. Walking home, I felt lighter, like I'd unclenched something that had been tight for years. But peace doesn't last long when you're dealing with people who see you as a safety net. That evening, as I watered the tomatoes, a car pulled up, Calder's. The door slammed hard. I could hear their voices before I saw them. Sloan sharp, Calder's pleading. "Dad," he called, marching toward me. "What did you do?" I wiped my hands on my jeans. "Good evening, son. Want to tell me what you're angry about before I guess?" "You canceled the rent transfer," he shouted. The landlord called. He said the payment bounced. What are you trying to prove? Sloane stood a few steps behind him, arms crossed, lips tight. He's trying to control you, she said. Classic manipulation. I almost laughed. Sloane, the only thing I'm controlling is my own wallet. The rest is on you, too. Calder stepped closer, eyes burning. We're family, Dad. Families help each other. Yes, I said slowly. They do, but help isn't the same as rescue. You two keep jumping without a parachute, thinking I'll catch you. I'm too old for that now. Sloane's voice turned sharp. So you're just cutting us off? After everything Calder's done for you? Everything Calder's done for me? I echoed. Sweetheart, what exactly is that? Her face flushed. He's your son. Yes, I said quietly, and I'd like him to stay that way. But if he keeps letting you treat me like an ATM, he won't be for long. Calder's jaw clenched. You don't mean that. I looked straight at him. I do. I mean every word. He stared at me like I was someone new, someone dangerous. Maybe I was. Then he grabbed Sloane's hand and stormed off toward the car. She gave me one last cold glance before they left, tires squealing on the road. When the sound faded, I turned back to my tomatoes. The evening sky was gold and pink, peaceful again. My heart wasn't. I had drawn a line, yes, but lines have a way of turning into walls, and I could already feel the bricks stacking between us, one by one. Still, I told myself, sometimes you have to lose a child to remind him what he's lost. As I turned off the porch light, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Calder. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Mr. Hale? A woman's voice said. This is Darlene from the Veterans Home. I just wanted to thank you. Your donation came through today. You have no idea how much this will help. Her voice trembled a little. I smiled. Glad to hear it, Darlene. Just promise me you'll keep it quiet. She laughed softly. Always. We said goodbye. I stood there for a moment, the night air cool against my face, and realized something. For the first time in a long while, I'd helped someone who didn't expect it, and who couldn't take it for granted. That night, I slept soundly, until the next morning, when I woke to 3 missed calls from Calder, and one voicemail that made my stomach twist. Dad, his voice said, low and strained, we need to talk. It's serious. Please, call me back. The tone wasn't anger anymore. It was fear. I stared at the phone, coffee half made, and felt the old ache rise again. What could possibly be serious now? Whatever it was, I had a bad feeling it wasn't just about money this time. The voicemail replayed in my head all morning like a broken record. Dad, it's serious. Please, call me back. Those words had weight. Calder never said please unless he meant it. I made my coffee but didn't drink it. It sat there cooling, like everything else in this house that used to be warm. I stared at the phone again, thumb hovering over his number. Then I let it fall. Not yet. Let him wait a little. Let him feel what distance really tastes like. By noon, the silence in the house was too much. I went outside, started raking the yard just to hear something other than my thoughts. A breeze came down the street, carrying the sound of kids laughing somewhere. I used to love that sound. Now it just reminded me of how long it had been since my own boy laughed like that around me. At 1:30, the phone rang again. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered. Mr. Hale, a man's voice said, this is Officer Dawson from the Dayton Police Department. Are you the father of Calder Hale? The rake slipped from my hands. Yes, I said slowly. What's happened? He's fine, sir. Just a situation we wanted to make you aware of. Your son and his wife were involved in a dispute at their apartment. There was some property damage. Nobody's hurt. But there's a pending charge, disorderly conduct. My throat went dry. You said they're not hurt? No injuries, sir. We just needed an emergency contact. He gave us your number. Of course he did. When the world turns dark, they still find their way back to the light they left behind. I thanked the officer and hung up, staring at the phone until my reflection blurred in the screen. By the time Calder called again that evening, I was ready. Dad, he said, voice shaking, I didn't know what else to do. We had a fight. Sloan smashed my phone. Then the landlord called the cops. I'm sorry you got dragged in. I took a breath. Dragged in? Called her. I'm already neck deep. You gave them my number, didn't you? He sighed. I didn't mean to. I just panicked. They said they needed someone responsible. The word hit hard. Responsible. I'd been that my whole life. Responsible enough for 2 parents, 1 son, and every bad decision he ever made. Are you staying somewhere safe tonight? I asked. He hesitated. We got kicked out. Sloan's staying with a friend. I'm in the car right now. The image hurt. My grown son, once full of plans and pride, sitting in a car with nowhere to go. 100 memories crashed together. Teaching him to drive, cheering his first job, fixing his first flat tire. He was always good with his hands, just not with people. Come here, I said finally. We'll talk. He arrived just after midnight. I saw the headlights before I heard the car. When he stepped out, I barely recognized him. His eyes were red, his face drawn. You look tired, I said. He gave a weak laugh. Haven't slept much. Guess I'm not really husband of the year material. We went inside. The house smelled like old wood and stew from the night before. Calder dropped onto the couch, staring at the floor. She said I embarrassed her, he muttered, that I made her life small. I sat across from him. Did you? He looked up, startled. What kind of question is that? A fair one. Did you make her life small, Calder, or did she make yours smaller and call it love? He didn't answer. His eyes filled with something heavy. I thought she loved me, he said finally. I believe she did, I said. But love that demands you give up your self-respect isn't love. It's leverage. He rubbed his face. She said I ruined everything. She's been handling the money, the rent, the bills. I didn't even know we were 3 months behind until the landlord showed up. 3 months. My chest tightened. Calder. I said slowly, how much do you owe? He hesitated. Almost $5,000. I sat back. $5,000? What happened to the savings from your job? He swallowed hard. Sloan used it. Said she was investing in a business. I closed my eyes. A business? He nodded. Some online boutique thing. It flopped. She didn't tell me until it was gone. For a while, neither of us spoke. The old clock ticked, steady as always. I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell him he'd been warned, that this was what happens when you ignore the hand that raised you. But when I looked at him, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow, I saw not a grown man, but a boy again, lost and afraid. I'll help you, I said finally. His head snapped up. You will? Yes, I said, but not with money. He frowned. Then how? You'll stay here. You'll work. You'll fix the roof that leaks and the porch steps that creak. You'll earn your rest and your meals, same as I did. You want to rebuild your life? Start with the hands that built your childhood. He nodded slowly. I can do that. You can, I said, and you will. But there's one rule, no Sloan. Not here. He hesitated, then nodded again. Understood. I stood, poured him some water, and handed him a blanket. You can sleep on the couch tonight. We'll talk more in the morning. As I turned off the lights, I looked at him one last time. He was already asleep, the lines of stress fading from his face. For the first time in years, my son looked peaceful. But peace never lasts long in a house built on broken trust. Because just as I started up the stairs, there was a sharp knock on the door. Fast, angry, familiar. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I froze. It was Sloan, and from the sound of her voice on the other side, she wasn't here to make peace. The knocks came again, sharp, impatient. 3, then 3 more. You could hear her tone in the rhythm. Entitled. Angry. Certain that someone owed her something. Rufus. I know he's in there. Sloan's voice cut through the night like glass on tile. Calder stirred on the couch, sitting up groggy and tense. Dad, don't answer it, he whispered. But I was already halfway to the door. This is my house, I said quietly. She doesn't get to shout my walls. I opened the door just enough to see her face in the porch light. Her hair was pulled back, her lipstick smudged, her eyes wild like someone who'd been living off nerves and caffeine for days. "You can't just steal my husband," she hissed. I stared at her. "Steal him? You kicked him out." "That was temporary," she snapped. "He's my husband, not your roommate." "Then maybe you should have treated him like one," I said. Her jaw clenched. "You think you know everything. Oh, man. You think you can buy respect with your retirement money. Newsflash, you can't control us anymore." I smiled slightly. I stopped trying to control anyone a long time ago. I'm just protecting what's mine. She took a step forward, the porch light catching the edge of her wedding ring. "Where is he?" "Sleeping," I said. "For the first time in weeks, from the look of him. He's safe. Leave him be." Her voice rose. "Safe? You think you can keep him from me? You think you can turn him against me?" Behind me, Calder appeared in the hallway, blanket draped over his shoulders. "Sloan, stop," he said, voice low. "You're making this worse." She turned to him, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're really staying here? After everything we built?" "What did we build, Sloan?" he said. "Debt? Lies? I don't even know who you are anymore." She flinched like he'd slapped her. Then she pointed at me. "He's poisoned you. He always wanted me gone." Calder shook his head. "No, Sloan, you did that yourself." Her face twisted. "You're making a mistake," she said coldly. "When you come crawling back, don't expect me to open the door." Then she turned on her heel and stormed off down the porch steps, heels clicking on the pavement until the sound vanished into the dark. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The night was still, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm but before the cleanup. I closed the door gently and locked it. "Sorry, Dad." Calder muttered, "You need to see that." I looked at him. "I've seen worse. You were 12 the last time I saw someone look at me like that. Your mother, just before she went into surgery. That same look of fear and pride fighting each other." He frowned. "You think she's scared?" "I think she's losing control," I said. "And people who live off control don't handle losing it well." He sat down again, rubbing his eyes. "I don't even know how to start over." "Start small," I said. "Tomorrow we fix the fence. Then the roof. Then yourself." He smiled faintly. "You always have a list, don't you?" "It's how I stay standing," I said. That night, the house slept heavy and quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. But I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair, listening to the old pipes groan, the house settling like an old man exhaling. My thoughts wandered to Marnie again, what she'd say if she saw this mess. Probably something gentle, like "Forgive him, Rufus." But forgiveness had teeth now. It wasn't just letting go. It was deciding who deserved another chance. At dawn, I stepped out to get the newspaper. Something caught my eye on the porch. A torn envelope. No address, just my name scrawled in quick handwriting. Inside was a note, and beneath it, a photo. The note read, "You don't know what your son's done. Ask him where the money really went." The photo was grainy, taken at night. A shot called her in an ATM, taking out cash. The timestamp was from 2 days ago, long after he'd said he was broke. I stood there in the morning light, the air cold on my neck. I looked through the window at Calder, still asleep on the couch, his face peaceful, his hands resting like a child's. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But lies, once they enter a house, have a way of finding cracks. And as I folded the note, one truth hit me hard. This wasn't just Sloan's mess anymore. Calder had secrets too. And if I didn't find them soon, they were going to bury us both. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, painting thin lines across the living room floor. Calder was still asleep on the couch, his arm hanging off the side, his chest rising slow and steady. I stood there a long while, watching him breathe, remembering when I used to check on him like that as a child, to make sure he hadn't kicked off his blanket or fallen out of bed. Back then, the worries were small, scraped knees, forgotten homework. Now, they came wrapped in deceit and eviction notices. I held the note and the photo in my hand. Sloan's words, "You don't know what your son's done," had sunk deep. She was manipulative, yes, But she wasn't stupid. She knew how to aim her arrows where they'd hurt most. I slid the photo back into the envelope and set it on the kitchen table. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. But I'd learned a long time ago that love doesn't erase truth. It only delays it. By the time Calder woke up, I had breakfast ready, black coffee, fried eggs, and toast. He sat down quietly, eyes heavy, face pale. "Thanks, Dad," he mumbled. I nodded but didn't smile. "Sleep all right?" "Best I've had in weeks," he said, forcing a weak grin. I waited until he took his first sip of coffee before asking, "You go anywhere after you left Sloan's?" He looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" "2 nights ago," I said calmly. "Around 11 p.m. You take out any cash?" His eyes flickered just slightly, so quick most people would have missed it. But not me. I'd been reading that face since it was in diapers. He hesitated. I needed gas. Just $40 or so." I nodded slowly. $40. I reached for the envelope and slid it across the table. "Then maybe you can explain why someone says it was a lot more than that." He stared at it, confusion turning to dread. He pulled out the photo, his mouth tightening. "She gave you this?" "She left it on my porch." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "She's lying, Dad. She's trying to turn you against me." "Maybe," I said, "but it looks real." He pushed back on the table, his chair scraping loud against the floor. "You think I stole from you, don't you?" I said nothing. Silence, I'd learned, is heavier than accusation. It makes people feel it themselves. He looked at me, anger and guilt wrestling behind his eyes. "You've always thought I was weak," he said. "Like I can't survive without your help." "I think you don't know how to survive without it," I said quietly. "That's not the same thing." He paced the kitchen, his hands on his hips. "You have no idea what I've been dealing with. The pressure, the debts, the job." "Then tell me." I said, "Tell me the truth, and we fix it together. But lie to me, Calder, and we're done." He stopped pacing. His shoulders slumped. When he finally spoke, his voice was small. It wasn't gas money. It was $300. Sloan called me that night. She said if I didn't send her something, she'd tell everyone I hit her. My stomach turned cold. "Did you?" "No," he said quickly. "God, no." We argued. "Yeah, but I never laid a hand on her. She threw her phone, smashed a lamp, then called the cops pretending I'd lost control. I just wanted it to stop. I thought if I sent her money, she'd back off." I let out a slow breath. "And you didn't think to tell me?" He looked ashamed. "I didn't want to drag you into it. I already ruined enough." I sat back, staring at my son. There was the mix of weakness and love that makes good men do foolish things. "Calder," I said, "you can't buy peace with people like her. You just rent it, and the rent always comes due." He nodded, eyes glistening. "You're right. Then stop paying for her mistakes." I said, "Let her drown in her own lies. You start clean from here. Understand?" He nodded again, this time with more conviction. "Yeah, I'm done with her." I wanted to believe him, but the way his fingers fidgeted with the coffee mug told me otherwise. That afternoon, he threw himself into work. He patched the porch, mowed the lawn, fixed a leak under the kitchen sink. He was trying, I could see that. By evening, he looked exhausted but lighter somehow. "You were right about this," he said. "Feels good to build something again." I smiled faintly. Hard work never lies. After dinner, he went to shower. I sat on the porch with my coffee, watching the sky burn orange and pink. The street was quiet, peaceful. Then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think you know your son." Check the glove compartment of his car. No name, no punctuation. Just that. I stared at it a long moment, the air turning colder. My instincts told me it was her. Sloan was playing games again. But something about the tone, direct, confident, felt different. Still, curiosity is a danger seed. It grows fast in the soil of doubt. When Calder went to bed that night, I took the spare key from the hook and stepped outside. The driveway was silent. The car parked under the maple tree. I opened the door, sat behind the wheel, and opened the glove compartment. There was a folded envelope inside. Thick, heavy. I pulled it out and switched on the cabin light. Inside were several stacks of cash, at least $2,000, and a note written in Sloane's handwriting. If you're reading this, he's lying to you again. I froze. The breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded like an old engine struggling to start. I looked back at the house through the windshield, its warm light spilling through the window, my son's silhouette moving upstairs. He was lying to me. Again. I closed the compartment and sat there in the dark, my hand trembling around the envelope. The night hummed with crickets and quiet betrayal. This time, the pain didn't come like a stab. It came like a slow flood, because I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at myself for still wanting to protect him. The night stretched long and heavy. I sat in that car for almost an hour, the envelope on my lap, the maple branches scratching against the roof like they were whispering, "You knew. You always knew." The cash looked too clean, new bills, crisp edges. $2,000. That wasn't gas money. That wasn't desperation. That was deceit dressed up as survival. I stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath my boots, and took a long breath of cold air. The house glowed warm from the inside, the kind of light you can't trust anymore once you know something's wrong. Through the window, I could see Calder asleep on the couch again, one arm over his eyes, exhausted. I used to think watching him sleep was comforting. Tonight, it made me ache. I went inside quietly, the envelope hidden beneath my jacket. I placed it on the kitchen table, beside the photo Sloane had left earlier. 2 pieces of evidence, 2 different lies, and my son standing in the middle. At dawn, I made coffee. Calder woke to the smell, same as always. He yawned, stretched, gave me a tired smile. "Morning," he said. I nodded. "Morning." "Sit." He frowned. "What's up?" I slid the envelope toward him. "Found this in your car." His face went pale. He didn't even try to lie this time. "Dad, I can explain." "Then you better start explaining fast." He sat down slowly, eyes on the table. "I was going to tell you. I swear, I just needed time." "Time for what?" "To make me a fool again." He flinched. "No, it's not what you think. That money, it's not stolen. It's from the sale." "What sale?" He swallowed hard. "My tools. Everything from the garage. The compressor, the drills, even the old socket set you gave me when I was 16. I stared at him. "You sold your livelihood?" He nodded. "I owed a guy some money. Loan I took when Sloane lost her job. Thought I could pay it back before you found out." "Who's the guy?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "You didn't borrow from a bank, did you?" "No," he said softly. "It was a guy I met at the shop. Short-term loan. High interest. I thought I could flip it fast, make it back, but it got bad. Real bad." I sank back in my chair, rubbing my temples. "Son, you can't play games with men like that. They don't forgive. They collect." He looked broken. "I know. That's why I was going to leave town. Before they find me." It felt like my chest caved in. "Leave town? Without a word? After everything?" He nodded slowly. "It's better that way. I've messed up too much. You don't need me dragging you down, too." I stood up, palms on the table. "You're my son, Calder. You don't get to run away from that. You face your mess. You fix it. That's what Hales do." He met my eyes, tears streaking down his cheeks. "Dad, I'm scared." "So am I," I said quietly. But fear's no excuse for lying. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. The air between us was thick with years of love and disappointment. An invisible thread stretched to its limit. Finally, I said, "Tell me the truth. All of it. Every detail." He did. It came out in slow, trembling words. How he'd taken a $5,000 cash loan from a coworker named Vic just to get ahead. How Sloane found out and pushed him to use it for a business. How it went bad, and Vic started calling at all hours. Threats, visits, warnings. By the time he was done, the sun was high and my heart felt old. "You owe him still?" I asked. He nodded. A little over $2,000. I tapped the envelope. Then this covers it. He shook his head quickly. No, I can't take that. I don't deserve it. You're right, I said. You don't, but I'm not giving it to you. I'm giving it to your chance at redemption. He frowned. What do you mean? I'm going to see Vic myself. His face went white. Dad, no. You can't. These guys, they're not like you think. You show up, you'll make it worse. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. You forget, son, I spent 40 years driving the city bus through every bad neighborhood in Dayton. I know the type. Dad, please, promise me you won't go. I picked up the envelope and slipped it into my coat. Promise me you'll stop lying. Then maybe I'll think about it. He didn't answer. That silence was all the permission I needed. By afternoon, I was standing outside a rundown garage on the east side. The sign read Vic's Auto and Parts, half the letters missing. The air smelled like oil and regret. Inside, 2 men were working under a hood. One looked up, thick neck, tattoos creeping up his arms. Help you? I'm looking for Vic, I said. The man smiled, slow and humorless. You found him. You a customer? Something like that. I held up the envelope. I'm here about my son. He wiped his hands on a rag. Ah, Hale's old man. Been expecting you. He took the envelope, counted the cash without looking up. All here. He tucked it into his jacket. Debt cleared. Good, I said. Then we're done. He grinned. Oh, we're done. But tell your boy, next time he borrows, I'll be collecting more than money. I met his stare and didn't blink. Next time he borrows, I said, he won't be breathing. Something in my tone must have told him I wasn't bluffing. He smirked, but he didn't answer. When I walked out of that shop, the sky was heavy with rain. I didn't run, I walked slow, steady. The kind of walk a man takes when he knows he's just closed one chapter of hell. Back home, Calder was waiting on the porch, pacing. Where were you? Handled it, I said simply. He looked terrified. Dad, what did you do? I ended it. He opened his mouth to protest, but then he saw my eyes and stopped. You really went, didn't you? Yes. He stared at me a long time, then whispered, You could have been hurt. I shrugged. Been hurt before. He sank onto the steps, head in his hands. You shouldn't have done that. Maybe not, I said softly. But fathers do stupid things when they love their kids. He looked up, eyes red. How do I make this right? By living better, I said. By proving I didn't waste my life raising you. The rain started to fall, light at first, then heavy. We sat there in silence, both soaked, neither moving. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't hurt. It felt like healing. But deep inside, I knew something still wasn't over. Because when I went inside to hang up my coat, I found another envelope on the kitchen table. No stamp, no name, just 3 words written in red ink. You're too late. And I swear, I felt the blood drain from my face. The rain hadn't stopped all night. It hit the windows like fingers tapping to remind me that peace never stays long. The envelope sat on the table between the empty mugs and a half-eaten plate of eggs. Those 3 words, you're too late, felt heavier than any debt. Calder stood beside me, hair still damp, eyes tired. Dad, he said softly, what does it mean? I don't know yet, I said, though the truth was I did. I'd seen handwriting like that before, Sloane's. The sharp loops, the little slant at the end of every letter. It looked angry, rushed, afraid. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a printed notice, eviction pending, 24 hours to vacate for the Linden Street apartment. Her name and Calder's right at the top. Underneath, scrawled in the same red ink. He said, you'd fix it. You always do. Calder's face went pale. She's still blaming me, he said, even after everything. She's not blaming you, I said quietly. She's calling for help. The only way she knows how. He shook his head. You can't be serious. After what she's done. I'm not doing it for her, I said. I'm doing it because a man has to know when to close a story, not let it rot. He didn't answer, but he followed me anyway. We drove through wet streets, past empty diners and flickering traffic lights. Dayton looked small that morning, like a town trying to wake from a bad dream. When we reached Linden Street, the landlord's truck was already parked out front. The air smelled of wet concrete and cigarettes. Sloane was there too, sitting on the steps, clutching a duffel bag. Her eyes were swollen, her mascara streaked from rain or tears. It was hard to tell which. She looked up when she saw us, half relief, half resentment. "So you came," she said flatly. I nodded. "You called." "I didn't call," she snapped. Then softer, "I didn't know where else to go." The landlord, a heavy-set man in a windbreaker, came over. "You folks here to clear out?" "Give her an hour," I said. "She'll be gone." He shrugged. "Fine by me. I'll come back after lunch." He left, his truck tires splashing through puddles as he drove away. When he was gone, Sloane turned to me. "You think you're the hero, don't you? Always cleaning up after everyone." I smiled faintly. "Heroes are just fools who show up when everyone else leaves." She laughed bitterly. "You're wasting your time. He doesn't want me." "I know," I said, "but you do." She blinked, confused. "What?" "You want him to want you. You want to feel needed. But love doesn't grow in pity, Sloane. It rots there." Her lip trembled. "You don't know what it's like, watching someone slip away, feeling invisible." "I know more than you think," I said softly. "I lost my wife that way. To illness, not indifference. But the silence feels the same." Something cracked in her expression. For a moment, she looked like a frightened girl rather than the sharp-edged woman who'd torn my family apart. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered. "Start over," I said, "without taking anyone with you." She nodded slowly, tears cutting through the makeup. "You really think he'll forgive me?" "That's not my call," I said. "But forgiveness isn't the same as returning. It's just a way of putting down the knife." Calder had been silent the whole time. Finally, he stepped forward. "I don't hate you, Sloane," he said, "but I can't love you the way I did. That part's gone." She nodded. "Then I guess this is goodbye." He handed her the duffel bag. "Goodbye." She turned, walked down the wet street without looking back. Her figure grew smaller until the rain swallowed her whole. For a long time, we stood there just listening to the rain. Calder finally exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for months. "It's over," he said. "Almost," I said. We spent the rest of the morning helping the landlord empty the apartment. Most of it was junk, cheap furniture, unopened mail, pieces of a life built on quicksand. In the back room, I found a small box with Calder's name on it. Inside were photos. Him and Sloane, smiling, him at graduation. A photo of me holding him as a baby. Taped to the back was a note in her handwriting. "He loves you more than he'll ever admit." I said nothing. I just handed it to him. He stared at it a long while, then tucked it into his jacket. When we drove home that afternoon, the clouds finally broke. The sun came out sharp and clean, lighting the wet streets until they shone like mirrors. Back at the house, Calder helped me fix the loose gutter and repaint the porch railings. There was something new in his movements, steadiness, purpose. When we finished, he sat beside me on the steps, hands stained with paint. "Dad," he said quietly, "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," I said. "Just live right. That's payment enough." He nodded. "I want to pay you back for everything. Not with money, with something real." I smiled. "Then stay. Help me fix this old place. Maybe open your own shop again. Hale Motors still has a nice ring to it." He laughed. The first true laugh I'd heard from him in years. "You'd really back me up?" "I already did," I said, handing him an envelope. He frowned. "What's this?" "Your mother's savings," I said. "I added my own to it over the years. I was saving it for when you grew up. I just needed to make sure you finally had." He opened it slowly, eyes wide. "Dad, this is..." "Yours," I said. "Not as a gift, as a second chance." His eyes filled. "I won't waste it." "I know." The wind picked up, gentle, cool. The maple leaves rustled above us. And for the first time in a long while, the sound wasn't sad. It was alive. As the sun dipped low, Calder went inside to wash up. I stayed on the porch, watching the neighborhood fade into evening. Across the street, the Johnson kids were chasing fireflies, their laughter carrying through the air. I took a slow sip of coffee, the kind that stays warm even when the world cools around you. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about remembering and choosing peace anyway. The phone buzzed on the table beside me. A message from an unknown number. Thank you for not giving up on him. SW. I stared at it for a moment, then smiled. I deleted the message, leaned back in my chair, and let the quiet fill the space that used to ache. The war was over, not because I won, but because I finally stopped fighting. And as the porch light flickered on, the tomatoes swayed in the evening breeze, and the old bus driver from Dayton, Rufus Hale, sat still for once, knowing that sometimes victory is revenge. It's peace.